Hello everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. We're taking a look at QTUM, QTUM, it's a blockchain, and I wanted to look at the technical analysis here for you to see if we can find a good entry point and understand just generally what's going on with the charts. There's no fundamentals that we really bother with, so if you have insight on that, feel free to link down below and comment and let us know what's going on there. But at this point, I'm just going to look at the technical charts and help you understand best practice and find a good entry. Now, I have years of trading experience, so I want to help bring that to the table, as well as the fact that I'm not a financial advisor, though, so just please understand that. Always do your own research. This is for educational purposes only. Furthermore, there is a link down below to our Telegram community if you'd be interested in joining to kind of stay engaged, communicate with myself and other like-minded individuals. Very last thing, there's also $25 in Bitcoin from Voyager. The link is in the description below as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right to it. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at QTUM, which is QTUM. I've been excited to check this one out, and just before we do, first of all, I always look at Bitcoin and Ethereum to kind of get a baseline on where the markets are heading, because a lot of things that we do are based on the Ethereum network, and also other coins are, well, pretty much all coins are based on how successful Bitcoin is doing, right? So it helps to get a baseline there, so I like to look at that first just so we can kind of compare the two, see how they relate, and make sure that we're understanding the big picture and not just making an uninformed decision, right? So that's kind of the best way to be good at looking at charts, is to find correlating data. So we'll go ahead and take a look at that here. So with Bitcoin, first thing I like to look at is the 4-hour chart. That's kind of my favorite chart, but it's also the most effective for the moving averages. So if you see the 50, 100, and 200-day moving averages here, the yellow one is the 50. We just tested that, and it's holding as a support. The 100-day moving average was also tested with a large variance recently, but broke that as well. And that is essentially a 100-day moving average. That's right around 54,000. But the most important one is this guy here. It is the 200-day moving average, is right close to about 57,000, plus or minus 100 or 2. And the reason why it's most important is if you look at the history, this purple line here, it's worked as a super strong support with a small variance over the course of Bitcoin's growth. So it tends to be the most important indicator you could pay attention to as far as just understanding support and resistance levels. So right now it's under that line. We're hoping for it to break up above and stay above, but just recently, last 8 hours essentially, we saw the price kind of tumble down below that line. But the 50-day moving average is essentially helping us out right now. But that is the overall state of Bitcoin. Again, this is a 4-hour chart. Ethereum, same scenario, 4-hour chart as well. Moving averages are getting a little closer, so we might see the 50-day moving average tested in the near future. Maybe not for another few days, but it is coming. And as you can see, just a lot of indecision in the market with Ethereum, because people are trying to figure out if they want to invest in Bitcoin or not. When the price goes up in Bitcoin, then Ethereum is like, oh, okay, it's good again. And then when it comes down, people jump over here and they're not quite sure, they sell and buy. It's kind of a mess, but that's kind of why you see a state of indecision right now, is because of how Bitcoin is reacting. Which takes us to QTUM. So looking at QTUM here, we want to kind of identify a few things. First of all, we look at the 1-day chart first, work our way down. We look at the 1-day, 4-day, and then the 15-minute and 1-minute charts. So something to note obviously here is that QTUM has 2 strong green days right now, right? So yesterday went from 1375 to approximately 1783, and today it's been 1725 upwards of 2614. So pretty strong growth, but it's pretty good. Based on its history, it's done something similar before. You see where it ramped up here, consolidated for a while, and then ramped up again, consolidated. So there's a similar pattern for me. I wouldn't say it's identical, but it does have this tendency of ramping up and calming down for a little while. And we had this retrace right here, but that was probably from Bitcoin, right? Because take a look, this is the 17th, so this green day, surprisingly, this green day, when Bitcoin sold off, the price actually closed higher than it opened. Let's see if we can get a closer look at that for you. That's this guy right here. And then on the 22nd, that was the second major sell-off from Bitcoin. So QTUM couldn't hold. It lost its momentum here, which makes sense because that was a pretty red week for us. And then on the 25th, yep, that makes sense. That's when Bitcoin decided to turn things around and jump up about 6,000 in one day. So we can kind of see it following Bitcoin's pattern, but as you can tell, when there was a massive sell-off, people jumped right back into Quantum as soon as Bitcoin was tumbling down and hit its lowest point. So it just had a lot of momentum going into it, so it looks different than Bitcoin, but it is following it similarly. So that's just good to note. Also note that the 50-day moving average, this yellow line here, has been tested once, twice, almost 3 times. So we see that as well. Furthermore, RSI is creeping up over 70. It's right around 75. So that's usually an indication that the price is overbought. And when it's overbought, there are retracements that can typically occur. But if we look at the history, again, the 1-day chart isn't that valid. The 4-hour chart we'll probably want to look at and see if it's better. If you look at this here, this retracement, when it came down right here, look at the price. I mean, shoot, the RSI was almost 90. So it was extremely overextended for, what, 3 or 4 days, 5 days on end. So if you've noticed bull runs in, at least I've noticed this, maybe you have too, bull runs in the market when it comes to cryptocurrency, they can last a good 5, 6, 7 days. But they typically start losing steam if they didn't have periods of consolidation in that time frame, right around day 5, 6, or 7. So that's kind of what happened here. It ramped up, RSI is overextended, then it had to retrace a little bit. Tried the same thing, and then Bitcoin decided to drop the bottom out, so to speak, and everything kind of came tumbling down. So that tells me that Quantum would likely be much higher than it is right now if Bitcoin had continued without that major dip. And in fact, Quantum is doing very well, all things considered, based on the fact that it does follow Bitcoin fairly close, but it also contradicts it in a way too, where it kind of just keeps going on its own. So it's really awesome. So I do like Quantum a lot. I think it's got some really good fundamentals too. So do your own research on that, but it kind of seems like a really good solid investment. But bottom line with the technicals, what we see here in the 1-day chart, that's what we're looking at. Let's go ahead and move on to the 4-hour chart, which I put the most weight in as far as the moving averages, VWAP, RSI and MACD. All those indicators are essentially most valid when it comes to this. The VWAP is different. That's more of a 15 minutes or less on the charts. But when we're looking at RSI, for example, let's talk about this really quick. First of all, if we look at we have the price came up over RSI rather. It hit 76 on this day here. And coincidentally, this 4-hour green bar was followed by a red bar, right? So again, it's not guaranteed, but it's likely that you're going to see a retracement if the RSI goes up above. And look, same thing happened here. Strong green increase. That was, I believe, earlier today, and then it was followed by a retracement. Okay, we'll look closer at the 15-minute chart so you can see that better. But that's generally what's going on. It's pushing up, fighting back off, pushing up, fighting down, essentially continuing that. But with the RSI being still overextended right now, that might not be advantageous to consider an entry at this exact moment, just based on what we see here so far. Again, the 15-minute chart will know. That'll tell me specifically if we're okay or not. But I can tell you right now, just based on the 4-hour chart, RSI appears to be extremely oversold. MACD is also overextended. And when you combine those two together, it's kind of a recipe for some type of retracement. Something's going to happen. Obviously, right? Has to happen. Can't not. But anyways, that's kind of what we're looking at there for Quantum. And why don't we go ahead and take a look at the 15-minute chart and kind of see what's going on here a little bit closer. So, what we usually like to do first is identify support and resistance lines when I look at the 15-minute chart. There's not a ton at this point because when the price goes up so fast, so quick, it's hard to identify. So sometimes we use either previous all-time highs, which it's broken past that already, if I'm not mistaken. Well, actually, we could use $21. Yeah, let's mark that. So we'll go with the previous all-time high of 21 and some change. And that'll be our support level. And coincidentally, it's been tested 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. So still a good support. And then what we could also consider doing is maybe Fibonacci retracement tool, look at the 1-minute chart for that. But I think we can extrapolate enough information from what we have here. In other words, what I want to identify here, and I kind of pointed this out already with the 4-hour chart, is the RSI. Now the RSI on the 15-minute chart, in my opinion, is kind of special. I think that it has it's a really firm indication of points in which you should either trim off the top or find a good entry on the bottom. In other words, take a look at all these peaks, right? First peak there, it looks really small, but that was big at the time, keep that in mind. Price came up and it retraced back down into consolidation. Continued up. Right here, we see a increase in RSI, it's up over 70, followed by a slight retrace. You see the pattern forming here? Every time the price goes up above that, it comes down a little bit and then it consolidates essentially. Now the reason why that's happening is because there's so much bullish momentum here that is still continuing upwards, right? So it's like not even caring right now. It doesn't care what happens, even if the RSI is above, it'll still continue to increase in price, but there's always a retracement, even though it's minor, followed by a state of consolidation. Looking at this here as well, this one fell down a lot faster, and the reason why wasn't just because of the price action, it was because of the variance between the volume weighted average price and the top price there. So I'm willing to guess that this is somewhere above 10%. Yeah. So that was a 13% increase. In other words, a separation from the volume weighted average price, where the price should be, which is essentially a moving support line, and the top price right here at 13% was too great. So there had to be a retracement. The price came back down. And what do you know, coincidentally, RSI was over 70. See, so these things I always like to pay attention to. This is usually how I trim money off the top if I have just say a long position I'm working with. And then once it finishes retracing and it kind of comes back down and tests the support level, in this case like the VWAP for example, then I add to my position and essentially average down my total cost. So that's kind of how I do that. But paying attention to the RSI is helpful in the 15-minute chart. I feel like it carries a decent amount of weight. So try to maybe work that into your regimen if you haven't already, and just understand that. And then concurrently also identify what the separation between the VWAP and the price is, right? Because that significant difference makes a big impact. I mean, look at this guy here, right where the VWAP was at, 24%. It's no wonder there was a massive retrace after that. Look at that. It came down almost, 2/3 of the way from how far it went up. So that's pretty good thing. So I mean, just pay attention to that. And then obviously here's another example. Look at that guy. Pops up over 70 for the RSI, and we see a retracement now. So what it could be doing right now is testing the volume weighted average price to see if it works as a support. If it does, the price could continue upwards. And that would be a case in point where I'd want to take entry. So what I do in this scenario is I'd wait for one of three things to happen. I'd wait to see if the price and the VWAP holds. So if we see two solid green bars that close above the volume weighted average price, then I would consider adding to my position. I'd take like a 25 to 30% position. If the VWAP line breaks and it keeps trending down below and we don't have a full 30 minutes of confirmation, see how this moving average reacts. Same situation there too. Now, to me personally, the 50-day moving average on the 15-minute chart isn't as strong as the support level I have there, as well as the VWAP. But as you can see, the VWAP is getting tested right now, so if it rejects and stays above, I might consider taking entry, but I'm going to wait 30 minutes for that. The third scenario is essentially to wait to see, and this is probably the most relevant and probably the most ideal, is if the price were to come all the way down to $21 and let's just say 10-15 cents, somewhere in that range, and test the support level and stay above, then it would be a good position to maybe add to your total entry. In other words, if it came all the way down there and held above and stayed above, again for no less than 30 minutes, maybe even 45, then I'd feel comfortable in adding to my position and going maybe just say 40 or 50% in. The reason why I say that is because it's been tested 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, almost 7 times. So it's a very strong support level at this moment. But just bear in mind, the reason why you wait for confirmation is if the price drops below that, then it is considered a resistance line, and it's going to be a much stronger resistance line because it was tested 6 times before that. The more often a support or resistance line is tested, the stronger it becomes once it's broken. So please remember that. If you're going to take anything away from this, RSI over 70, pay attention, and the support level becomes a resistance if it's been tested too many times, and it becomes a much stronger resistance. Okay, so it does look like the price is potentially holding on the VWAP line here, but we'll see what happens in the near future. So hopefully you can find a good entry yourself. I hope you did find this beneficial, and if you do, of course, like and subscribe. Consider watching other videos, because I pretty much do this all day, every day. I love it. And get engaged in community too. We have an awesome Telegram community, really awesome community growing there, and everyone's really helpful. It's just amazing the caliber of people in cryptocurrency. Really awesome group. That includes yourself too. So feel free to join up. But at this point, I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks again for your time. We'll keep a closer eye on QTUM moving forward, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks again.